These are unprecedented times, and that's probably the second most overused phrase many of you have heard at this point. In all seriousness, 2020 is a year that many look back on with the opposite of fondness, which is perfectly understandable. I mean, it's left my life in a mess that I still need to put back together, but that's neither here nor there. However, despite my exhaustion, I have been trying to remain positive, and in light of that, I've put together a short list of games I've beaten in the past year that I think are deserving of praise. These aren't necessarily games that were released in 2020, I'm not much for modern gaming, but rather these are games that I had not beaten until 2020. With that out of the way, let's get into it. In 2020, I decided to check out some of the Mega Man franchise, especially the Mega Man X series for the first time, and it's certainly been an interesting journey. As variable as the quality of the X games is, there are certainly some high-quality titles in this sub-series, with Mega Man X4 being my favorite Mega Man game as of the time of this writing. X had always been a blast to control in the Super Nintendo titles with his dashing and wall jumping abilities, and that fortunately carries over to this PlayStation installment. Even better is that Zero is also a fully playable character with his own playstyle and campaign that are just as good as X's, which enhances the game's replay value. While later X games would struggle with level design in some way or another, X4 shines bright in that regard. Everything just has a good fast-paced rhythm to it, each stage shakes up the gameplay a bit without sacrificing quality, aside from maybe Jet Stingray stage, and all the collectible upgrades are hidden in places that are reasonably fun challenges to reach, again aside from Jet Stingray's stage. The lineup of bosses is also quite well done, although some of the special weapons regrettably break them pretty badly. I'm a sucker for the 5th gen aesthetic, and the game absolutely delivers when it comes to graphics, not to mention a soundtrack that's pleasant on the ears, although it's not as outstanding as the music of X5 and X6. As lackluster as the story elements may be, the good in this game easily outweighs the bad. Just thinking about the game while writing this script makes me want to play it again, but we've still got 3 more games to talk about. While the Mega Man franchise was one I didn't experience for myself until this year, I played a decent amount of Sonic the Hedgehog before 2020. Despite this, it actually wasn't until early this year that I finally got to experience Sonic Mania, the classic-styled game that was highly revered upon release, for the first time. Was that good publicity justified by the game's quality? Well, it wouldn't be here if it wasn't. While I see a lot of people nowadays say that Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the superior game, Sonic Mania is the one that gets my preference. People take some issue with how much of a point Sonic Mania makes with nostalgia, and even I wish it wasn't so scared of committing to the whole franchise. The thing is, unlike certain other games that get that criticism, Mania oozes with creativity despite its decades-old influences. So many of the callbacks this game makes are ingenious, while the new zones are brimming with personality. Old or new, Mania's levels have some of the best design in a 2D Sonic game, being very fluid and balancing that with plenty of different pathways and gimmicks that largely don't hamper the game's pace. Mania also succeeds at not just recreating the control feel of the classics, but even surpassing them thanks to the drop dash. Even many of the bosses and special stages are pretty fun, which is no small feat for a Sonic game. Here's hoping they have another 2D Sonic game this good for the 30th anniversary, preferably with original level themes, please. Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest is frequently regarded as one of the greatest side-scrollers of all time, and I can see why. Following up on the already well-made Donkey Kong Country was a difficult undertaking, but Diddy's Conquest surpasses it in many ways. The control is just as tight as it was before, but the levels and bosses see substantial improvement with more variety and challenge. There's also plenty more bonus content, such as the hero coins and much more fleshed out bonus barrels. Despite relying heavily on mid-90s CGI tech, the visuals hold up surprisingly well even today. Need I mention the soundtrack? Chances are you've already heard Sticker Brush Symphony at some point before watching this. There is definitely so much that this game gets right and earns my respect for. With all that said, this is the game that I was honestly the most hesitant to revisit for this video. I have a very tough time with these die-in-one-hit games except under very specific circumstances, like how Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3 both have multiple checkpoints per level and let you save at any point between levels. Diddy's Conquest doesn't have either of these, which makes incredibly minor stuff like being unable to jump off a pole unless you're pressing left or right come off as more grating than it should. I was able to overcome the challenge for this video, but I ended up spending 10 minutes grinding for lives further in. Still, in the grand scheme of things, it would be dismissive to not include this on the list just because because of that one aspect. Finally, we have Chrono Trigger. Much like Diddys Conquest, this is often regarded as one of the greatest games of its ilk. As I've mentioned before, the SNES is full of RPGs that remain very popular to this day, but Chrono Trigger seems to stand particularly tall here, and for good reason. Time travel plots seem to be the hardest to write well in any work of fiction, but this game is able to make it work well and make sense. The choices you make feel like they have an impact, and there's even multiple endings to get. At the same time, it avoids being overloaded with text and makes it easy to keep track of what's going on and get invested in the characters. Combat is the bread and butter of a game like this, and Chrono Trigger handles this part great as well. It's easy to get into with straightforward RPG mechanics, but it packs a solid amount of depth thanks to the use of positioning and the dual and triple moves you can learn. Oh, and did you know that this game is the origin of the term New Game Plus? Maybe you did. I don't think I have much else to really add to the conversation with this one, especially since it's the one game I couldn't beat again for this video. All I can say is that it's the encapsulation of everything I love about the RPG genre. And there we have it, 4 excellent games that I beat in 2020. If any of these games caught your interest but you haven't played them, then you'd be doing yourself a disservice by not checking them out if you can. And I know the comment down below line is cliche and a bit cringy, but since I'm sure what you've all played this year is going to be equally, if not more interesting, forget it. Comment down below and tell me what your favorite games or other positive life experiences from 2020 were. Or vent about how much you hated the year, either way. I've put together a short list of games I've beaten in the past year that I think are deserving of praise. That was my phone.